Hey guys, welcome to the next part. In this part, we're going to talk about getting power into this contraption from the car. Now, there's two power sources that we need to get. We need to get an always-on power source, and we need to get a run accessory power source. So, one of the things people usually do, and whether it's encouraged or not encouraged, depends on who you're talking to, is people like to use that add a fuse function where, you pull out the stock fuse, you put it in, and it's got two fuses and an extra wire. That's all well and good. I've heard mixed signals about what's safe, what's not safe. And what I think I'm going to do is I decided, you know what? When you look at your fuse box, and you look at the diagram, you'll see things that say unused or not used, right? But there's a fuse there. So what I decided to do was I want to actually use one of those fuses directly in the fuse box as if it was a built-in function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for an unused always-on source and an unused run accessory source. Now, in order to do that, though, I need to understand how and where do I add a wire to the existing connectors in the vehicle in order to understand or in order to make that fuse, those existing fuses, have an exit from the smart junction box. Okay? So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get our hands on a smart junction box. And we're going to tear it apart. Hey guys, welcome back. And today we are going to be deconstructing the smart junction box for the S197. This is a spare box that I bought online to learn from, and quite a lot of learning took place. So the first thing you need to do if you're going to do this is you need to remove all of your fuses. So I've removed all the fuses. I removed the big silver one and the big relay here. Then on the sides here, there are little nubs that you need to pry away, and that will allow you to take this plastic front cover off. Now I've already done that, so I can lift this right off. Okay, we're going to set that to the side here, and what you'll see now is this is the inner parts of the smart junction box. However, there's a couple things to note that I think it's important to understand how this works before we move forward. Your smart junction box has all your fuses. Your fuses are basically what allow the voltage from your main battery, your primary battery, to get into each individual function. That voltage comes in through this plug down here at the bottom. So anywhere you see this metal piece touching, that is live voltage whenever the car is actually just sitting stationary, even if the car is off. So you would know just by looking at this, I have voltage coming through here, and it comes over here. I'm going to have voltage on this pin, this pin, this pin, as well as all these pins going up to the top here. That means, very simply put, the voltage, when you have a fuse in, comes through here, goes up, and then crosses the fuse and goes through this side of the pin. Okay, and then it goes down. And again, so on and so forth through this whole thing. Now what you'll notice is this bar comes up here, comes over here and stops. And then it comes up here, comes over here and stops as well. That's because not every one of your fuses is always active. Some of them are only active when you turn the key on, and that becomes important later. Now, once you have it set up, once you have it opened and sort of, let's say, taken apart, you can take this entire circuit board piece out of the housing. So all you have to do is kind of flip it over and it will fall out, and you set that to the side. Okay, what do we have here? We actually have a sandwich of almost what I would say 4 pseudo boards that are here together. So if we turn this on its side, you can see I have one board that's green, I have a second board that's green, and then I have these 2 black pieces. Okay? Now, in order to take those apart, the first thing you need to do is take these 4 clips off. They're very simple. They come off 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we have those clips off. That's going to allow us to take the plastic off. Okay, usually the plastic will come off in a set of, let's say, 2, and you can then pry them apart. And what you'll notice is, just right off the bat, some of my fuse, the sort of receiving end of the fuse, are actually soldered directly to this top green board. Okay, some of them are still up here, you know, namely a couple. And the way you figure out where they go is then this board, if you gently, you can take it apart. Now there's nothing on the back, thankfully, so all the electronics are located on the front. But the way you could quickly interpret this is, if I wanted to know where, say, okay, these fuses go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this is fuse number 11. I want to know where this goes. I would have to take it out. I could open it up. And then I follow this fuse down this circuit all the way over to here. So this fuse would be this pin, this small pin, that is in this connector that lives over here. Okay? So what you'll notice is that a lot of these connectors have different wires all over the place, or different pins all over the place. I believe this is the C228D connector, and some of the pins are here, some of the pins are here. You know, I'm not sure if any of the ones come from below, but my plan is to map all this out in let's say a Photoshop type of system. So I know I have board 1, board 2. I'll set those aside. Lastly, we have these 2 boards. Now, these 2 boards are very difficult to take apart. I'm going to show you why. You'll notice here are 3 pins. There's 2 pins here. There's 2 pins here. And then there's a whole slew of 24 tiny pins over here. That's important because those pins are actually soldered to the board underneath. So if I turn it to the side, you can see that those are soldered in, and if I pick it up, you can sort of see the 2 there. You know, if I turn it, you can kind of see a couple more. There's the 3 pins. So you need to desolder those. All of these pins were relatively easy to desolder except for H10. H10 took me forever. However, once you have those desoldered, you can decouple these boards and take them apart. Okay? Now this is where all the magic happens within your smart junction box. Kind of some of these components are these integrated chips. There's resistors, there's capacitors all in here, diodes. These are all what operate your smart junction box and allow it to kind of turn some fuses on when the car is on, you know, have them off when the car is off, you know, have the smart junction box make decisions and allow certain things when, let's say, it interprets a signal from the, you know, daylight sensor and so on. I'm not too certain because I'm not an expert in electronics, but I believe this is an antenna. If you guys were curious and you were wondering, I'm almost certain that's what that is. Could be for your key fob, but I'm not entirely sure on that. So now that we have this apart, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you guys through what it looks like, how I go about actually tracing some of these circuits. I'm not going to trace everything, at least I don't think so, but my plan is to at least trace a couple of the fuses, which should be relatively straightforward just to get some practice in. So I'll be able to trace, you know, here's the source, comes to here to the fuse, and then after the fuse, where does it go and exit through whatever connector. And I do have a diagram that will tell me, for the most part, where I should be expecting my circuit to exit the board. Okay, so I'm going to get that all set up. I'm going to put it up on the computer, and then we'll pick it up from there. All right, guys, what I thought was going to be an easy project turned into something a lot more massive. So What I've done is, or what I started out doing was mapping out the fuses, and it quickly spiraled into mapping out a lot more than the fuses. Now this is only partially done, but I am going to show you guys everything I've mapped out so far in the Smart Junction box. And some of it is done, some of it is not done. But you can see here, based on this, I have mapped out a significant portion of the box, the plugs, the functions, all of the different things that your Smart Junction box supports. I've mapped out all of these fuses along the right side here, or not all of them. There's still some I haven't mapped out. A significant portion of the run and partially on ones. I've gone through, okay, how does it actually interact with the board? And to a certain extent, how does it interact with the microprocessors, microcontrollers, and the FETs and all of that stuff on the actual board? All of this was done primarily to identify 2 pins that I want to use to add circuits to that can support my always on and my run accessory wires that I need for the heated steering wheel. 1 run accessory, 1 always on. Now I've taken all of this information and I've documented it here in a Word document. And you can see one by one, I've documented each one of these connectors, and where it's not used, I've actually documented very specifically and deliberately where do those things go, what is the function as defined by not just the wiring diagram, but the board. And lo and behold, I found some pins that don't exist at all, and some pins that are good candidates for always on power. So for instance, C228A, which is this plug, is missing pin number 13. Well, pin number 13 is here. That's this one right here, but it doesn't have a wire. So if you were to add a wire and send it wherever you want it, you would get always on power for the 15 amp fuse there. I'm not going to get into every single one of these. Some of these are a lot more detailed than others. For instance, if we look at B has a significant number of pins and a significant number of information. So I will share this with you guys, this link. But really what it boils down to is this last section here. These are our always on hot fuses that are either not used or they're used in some circumstances. This is the relay, do not use. Okay, but what you ultimately want to do is pick one of these, stick with it, and, go from there. Now, I decided to go with this one, which is fuse number 18. Fuse number 18 is an unused fuse. If we come up here to fuse number 18, you'll see fuse number 18 has nothing it's shared with. It simply has to come out of pin number 2. You can see fuse number 19 is a 25 amp one, similar story, and so on. So if you want to dig through this information, you certainly can. I am going to use fuse number 18 for this project. That is in connector C2280D-2. That's the pin I need to add in. And then, unfortunately, when it comes to the start or run section of the car, there really aren't any empty ones that the car doesn't use at all if it's a fully loaded system. However, we have 3 options that we can go with, or I can go with my car, for the start run. Now remember, the start run doesn't need a lot of power. It's really just maintaining the switch. So there's fuse 29, which if your car did not come with a reverse camera, that wire is going to be empty. So you could add a 5 amp fuse there, add in a pin and a wire, and you can use that. You can go with fuse number 33. The fuse number 33 is a 10 amp fuse that powers the Boss Laguna Seca gauges. So unfortunately, if you're using a Boss Laguna Seca, you're out of luck here. But I'm lucky because unlucky if I can't afford one. But I don't have a Boss Laguna Seca, so that particular wire terminal is going to be empty, so I'm going to add a terminal in there. That's the one I'm opting to use. And then if you needed to, fuse number 35 actually splits off. Part of it goes to the BCMB, and part of it goes to an unused space for a terminal you could add into 2280B-9. Again, if you're doing something very lightweight, I don't think that it would be a problem to share with that. Just be cognizant of how much power you're going to draw, because that 10 amp is shared with the BCMB. So that's it. That's the plan for me for right now. And I don't know why I said 3. This is supposed to be 6. So what this is going to allow me to do is very specifically go back to each one of these. So B6 and D2. If I come back here, I can look at this diagram and say, okay, B6 in my connector here, B6 is right here, the 6th pin. And then if I look at D and it's D2, I can look at my connector here and I can know that, okay, D2 is right here to right here. D2 is going to be this spot right here that I'm going to add a pin and a wire to. So what I'm going to do is, as far as next steps go, is I'm going to show you guys how to do that. And we will probably do it in the car. So thank you very much, guys, and catch you in the next one. See ya.